Hello, welcome to part 2 of the s'mores extravaganza. Last Saturday at 11 o'clock, we made marshmallows. So I showed you how to make a vanilla bean marshmallow, and then I said that this week we would make graham crackers. So I'm going to demonstrate how to make graham crackers from our graham cracker recipe, which is online. And then I will actually construct the s'mores and show you how I like to eat them. A little bit of general housekeeping is that you can order for pickup at the lab and online orders to be shipped at Recchiuti.com. We ship Monday and Wednesday, and then you can pick up Wednesday through Saturday at the lab from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. in Dogpatch. And once again, I just want to thank everyone for continued support of Recchiuti. It's been really great. So let's get into it here. I'll just start with this recipe. So this is actually a graham cracker recipe after testing a variety of recipes. This is in my Chocolate Obsession book, which was released in 2006, but it's actually available online as well. But it's a graham cracker recipe that is, it's not like your light, fluffy, soft graham crackers that you see like on an industrial level. It's actually from an old original graham cracker recipe using either wheat flour, graham flour, which is technically wheat flour, it just has the germ on it. I try to use a coarser wheat flour versus like a fine pastry wheat flour. I think it gives it a little bit more texture, and it's just a nicer piece in itself. And it's very hard and crunchy. So when we make the s'mores, we're gonna make the s'mores open face, because if you try to make a s'more sandwich with graham cracker, marshmallow, chocolate, and then a hard graham cracker on top, and you go to bite into it, the marshmallows are just gonna squirt out the back, and it's gonna be a big old mess. So I suggest making it open face, but if you want to try to make it as a sandwich, you can as well. So let's get started here. The first thing I'm going to do is, in the recipe, we're going to take our liquid ingredients. So here I have 1/3 of a cup of milk, and I would go room temperature milk.
And it's whole milk, right?
It's whole milk. And then this is about 4 tablespoons of honey. You can use like a clover honey. I wouldn't use like a really strong honey, like a buckwheat honey or something like that. They're just, the flavor really kind of masks the flavor of the actual graham cracker. So I would try to refrain from using that type of honey. Clover honey, and I wouldn't use like an herb infused honey. I would just stick with a pretty much straightforward honey. But you can get a nice organic honey, really beautiful. And then the last ingredient is about a tablespoon of vanilla extract.
And why are you mixing it in with the milk?
So I'm mixing all, like a typical baking techniques is that you're mixing all of your wets together, and then I'm going to set them aside. So you have your milk, you have your honey, and you have your vanilla extract here. I'm going to set that aside. And then the next thing we're going to mix together is the whole wheat flour, which is about 1 cup, and 3 tablespoons. So I'm going to mix that. And then we have AP flour, which is about 1 cup, which equals about 5 ounces. I'm going to mix that together. And then you have baking soda and salt, about 1/4 teaspoon of each. I'm going to add that. So you want to add all your dries. This is just kind of your typical baking way of baking. Add your dries, set aside your wets. So there's a couple of ways to do it. So I've had people ask questions. It's like, why don't you cream your butter with your sugar? And the reason why I'm not is because I want it to be a little bit more short. I'm gonna actually put this in a bowl so you can see what's going on, and then I will place it into the mixing bowl and mix it for you, because you can't really see what's happening in the mixing bowl. So far we have baking powder, salt, whole wheat flour, and white and all-purpose unbleached white flour. And so what I'm going to do is add butter to it, and I usually have chilled butter.
And why do you like chilled butter?
Well, because I'm adding it to it, and I want to make sure that it gets distributed so it's like a cornmeal type of texture within the flour. I'm not trying to add the butter and just make it like a soft paste. And I think going back to the original question that's been asked a lot when I make this is that why don't you cream the butter with the sugar first, and then alternately add your dries and your wets. You can do that, but you come out with a completely different type of cookie. The butter is 5 tablespoons, if you're wondering what the butter is.
Michael, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you recommend a wheat flour since you're suggesting a coarse flour?
I'd say a King Arthur. It's a really nice wheat flour that you can buy online. It's readily available, and it's a really high quality flour. There's other flours. I know that at the larger stores, of the Whole Foods and so on and so forth, will have different types of flours, and I think they even have their own. But I don't think they have a coarse wheat flour. So I would say go with King Arthur, they're a miller. They're a flour miller, and they have a whole selection of different types of flour, and they even have a graham flour. And I said the graham flour has the bran that remains onto the husk, the flour itself, the husk of the flour.
So you're saying that the bulk flour that, say, Whole Foods would offer wouldn't include a coarse or a graham?
They might have a coarse whole wheat, but they don't always have a coarse whole wheat, because I actually was looking for flour at a variety of stores just to kind of see what they had. And they mostly had whole wheat pastry flour. And whole wheat pastry flour has a tendency to be really fine. And I'm looking for something with a little more texture to it.
And is the texture also adding to the flavor?
Well, if you use a graham flour, it adds to the flavor because it's got the germ on it. Some people also like to add a little bit of wheat germ to the recipe. So say, for example, if you have a cup of flour, you would add 2% wheat germ. So you remove about 2%. You would take a tablespoon out of regular flour, like whole wheat flour, and add a tablespoon of wheat germ to
So there is a recommendation also that Central Milling up in Sonoma offers.
Central Milling's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of great mills. I'm not just pointing out King Arthur, and King Arthur's also in Vermont. It's not even in California, and there's California mills.
But they're distributed and accessible, right?
Yeah, there's K-Pay Mills, who's a really amazing miller. He's at the farmer's market in San Francisco in the Ferry Building. CAPAY Mills, K-Pay Mills, yes. And he does small batch milling of all different types of things, really cool rye flours, all different grades of whole wheat flours, and they come in these really gorgeous little sacks, these little cotton sacks, and his work's amazing. So you can get his work as well. I think he might ship, and you also could visit him. If for some reason you're around the farmer's market today, he should be there. I saw that he was planning on being there. Okay.
So the way that you incorporated the butter is very similar to how you would make pie dough, right?
Yeah.
Is it the same texture that you're looking for?
I want it to be a little finer. So a couple things you can do is you can use a fork, or you can just use the machine. The reason why I'm not using the machine, to be quite honest with you, is the machine makes a lot of noise, and this video would just be really noisy with the Hobart or the KitchenAid or your stand-up mixer or whatever it is. You can use a hand mixer, but you want to have some sort of paddle attachment. You don't want to have a whip attachment. You really just want to incorporate it in. Right now, what I'll do is I'll give it a shot.
So you've incorporated all your flours, your baking soda.
So both
salt.
flours are in, baking soda, salt, butter. So now I'm just mixing it with a paddle. I'm not using a whisk. And I'm just trying to create that rough cornmeal type of texture. You remember you had about 2.5 ounces of butter or about 5 tablespoons of butter. If you didn't get that in my last ramble.
And the recipe is in the bio.
Yeah.
The link is there.
So if you used warm butter or used room temperature butter, it would start to just kind of absorb, and the flour would start absorbing into the butter. So you wouldn't really get the same technique. You want to keep it as short as possible. That's where you get a really crunchy cookie. So I'm just blending this now. So you have the cold butter. It could be frozen or it can be just really cold. I'd say a little bit above refrigeration temperature. And then you just mix it in. You can mix it in by hand. If you're making this size batch, it's pretty easy to do by hand. You could probably get away with doing it without using a mixer if you don't have a mixer. You could make this by hand completely. But if we make a very large batch, we make like about an 80-pound batch, or no, a 220-pound batch. So we need to use a mixer. I don't think we're all not strong enough to make that work. So let me see how this is going here. Get that mixer off. So you can see that it's more like a coarse cornmeal texture. And now what I'm going to do is add brown sugar. So this is a cup of dark brown sugar, and you can use a lot of different types of brown sugars. You can use molasses-based brown sugars. There's a variety of brown sugars you can use. I wouldn't use turbinado sugar, but I would like a brown sugar with a lot of flavor, a lot of molasses flavor, because that's where you get that really helps kind of marry with the flavor of the whole wheat dough, and it gives you that kind of graham experience.
Can you use molasses?
Not medium molasses instead of honey. You could. I never tried it. It might be a little bit too strong. So now we're just blending in the sugar. So we've got brown sugar, all-purpose white flour, unbleached white flour, whole wheat coarse flour, baking powder, salt, and we had our liquid set aside, which is milk, vanilla, and a little bit of honey.
There's a question. Panela?
Huh?
Panela?
Vanilla.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I'm not quite sure what that means.
Is that like a fake vanilla?
Oh, I don't know.
Can they respond? Do they know? So now I'm adding the liquid, which is vanilla, honey, and milk. Whole milk.
Oh, it's panela sugar.
Oh.
We'll have to research that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. So it's a vanilla infused sugar? So you want to just beat this until it comes together? That's it. You don't want to overwork it. So what we're trying to, like in a lot of recipes, they call for, when you beat the sugar and the butter together. If I were to beat the sugar and the butter together, I would beat it just till it's like creamed and mixed, but I wouldn't make it really light and fluffy, because then you're going to incorporate too much air into it, and you're going to come out with a completely different cookie. But if you make the graham cracker of this recipe in those steps that I instructed, you'll have these results.
So panela sugar is an Ecuadorian sugar, so we should see if we can get that.
That's really cool. I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
So here's the dough. So what I recommend is kind of like just pressing it out into, about a 5-inch, maybe by 5-inch or so piece. You don't have to work it. Don't knead it. Don't work it. It's going to be a little, you want to just let it relax at this point.
So
you don't
since
wanna-
everybody doesn't have the benefit of a marble, you
You
can,
don't need marble for
Okay.
this. We just happen to be shooting on a marble table. You can do this on a wooden table. You can do this on anything. This isn't very temperature sensitive, this particular dough. I mean, if after you let it rest and you roll it out, if you roll it out in a really hot room and a really hot table, you're going to have a very, very difficult time working with it. So you need to have a cool surface and room. If it's marble, metal, wood, whatever it is. So I just let this sit in the fridge. What I recommend is wrap it in plastic and let it sit overnight and not try to make it the same day, because you're going to let the gluten and everything relax and you're going to get a much nicer, it's going to be a lot easier to roll out the dough.
so there's a question as to whether we've tried doing a gluten-free version.
You can. I made a graham cracker with, I haven't played around with a lot of gluten-free doughs, but the one that works really well is cup for cup for me. And that's the only one I've really played around with. I haven't done all of the mixes, but I know that you can. What happens with gluten-free is that sometimes it's just a lot drier because you have the rice starches and things like that really kind of absorb moisture. But I know that you add oils and different things to compensate for that. So it'll definitely work, and especially a cookie like this, because it's a very
So the
hard,
graham cracker can be made with gluten-free.
Yes.
And how can you freeze it, and how long?
Yes. So you can freeze it. So for example, here's a little TV magic. Here's the dough rolled out and from a freezer, and this is probably in the freezer because we use this at Recchiuti Confections for projects and some things that we make. And this is probably been in the freezer for about a month, I'd say, because we haven't been really messing with graham crackers too much lately, especially since we've been all kind of focused on holidays and Easter and Mother's Day and so on and so forth.
So going back to the gluten-free, are we using, when you tested it, was it a combination of the regular cup for cup and whole wheat?
It was
What's it
cup for
repla-
cup and whole wheat, and then what I did was I used a really strong Japanese brown sugar, which is a very licorice kind of based brown sugar, or you can use, you need some stronger flavor that's going to kind of compensate for the fact that you're not using a wheat. You can also add a little bit of seasoning to the flour, to the cup for cup, to kind of build that flavor. You can add a little clove, add a little cinnamon to it. You're also going to sprinkle clove and cinnamon and sugar on top before you bake them. So you just have to play around with it. I actually haven't played around with it enough, but I mean, there's so much successful gluten-free baking happening, and there's a lot of really smart people out there that came up with some amazing recipes. I don't see why it's not possible. So here I've rolled out my dough. So in the recipe, it says to roll it out 1/8 of an inch, but what I like to do is roll it out 1/4 of an inch. I like them thicker, and that's just me. But if you want to roll it out 1/8 of an inch, you'll actually get more graham crackers that way. If you roll it out 1/4 inch, you're going to get less graham crackers. But I like these thick, crunchy graham crackers. This is kind of my preference.
So we've also used the graham crackers not only for s'mores, but you've chocolate dipped them as well, haven't you?
Yeah, we just dip the square of the graham cracker in milk chocolate or dark chocolate. So you can cut it into any shape you want. So we used to do little s'mores bites a long time ago, where we actually took the marshmallow and cut. This is a marshmallow that we made last week. We take the marshmallow and we cut the graham cracker the size of the marshmallow, place the marshmallow on top and stick it with a little bit of chocolate, and then dip the whole thing in chocolate, and that's called a s'mores bite. That's pretty wonderful. So you can do a lot of things with graham cracker. So I would say you cut them into almost 3 by 3 pieces. And you don't have to use a knife on a marble table, because you might really dull your knife if you're wondering, but this knife's pretty dull anyway. I don't really care. So you see here, I didn't measure it, and it gives me some leftover, and that's where I would have enough to do, a s'mores bite. if I were to bake this and then place that on top and then dip this in chocolate.
So can you show them what you did with your cut? Can you show?
Yeah, so just cutting it, you know, this is basically like a 6 by 12 or 8 by 12 inch pan that we're using. I'm rolling it out. You can roll it out in whatever size pan you have. And then I would line the pan with parchment paper. I would cut it either, you could probably get 3 across and 4 down if you cut it a little bit smaller. These are about 3 by 3 inch pieces, and they're about 1/4 inch thick. Like I said, in the recipe it says 1/8 inch thick, so you'll get more if you want them thinner.
So there is a question. How do you make these like your burnt caramel grams? Burnt caramel grams.
We only have a burnt caramel marshmallow that we make. I don't know about a burnt caramel gram. We used to make a burnt caramel marshmallow where we would substitute the regular sugar. If you ever remember.
And that was the s'mores bite.
Yeah, but we didn't. The graham cracker itself is not burnt caramel, so it's really the marshmallow is the burnt caramel flavor.
Would you be able to change the sugar from the sugars that you used or previously recommended to the burnt caramel? Would that be too liquidy?
You can't. You don't want to use a liquid sugar because you need that sugar for that crunch, that crystals, and you need the amount of liquid that I discussed in the recipe. I wouldn't go much more than that liquid. So if you're going to replace that liquid with a different type of liquid, say for example, like instead of using vanilla, the vanilla extract, you're going to use maple, or you can use maple syrup, you can use molasses, you can use agave syrup. Agave syrup really doesn't have a lot of flavor; it's just sweet. But maple syrup would, or molasses would. You're just going to have different results. It's not that it's bad, it's just your preference. But you might like, so you can go in a variety of different directions.
So how does the thickness that you rolled it out affect the baking time? Because typically we have it thinner, and we recommended it thinner in the book.
I would say maybe like by a minute or so. I mean, a lot of times what I do is that I don't, we give baking times as a point of reference, but you really have to make sure that's like, I don't know what your oven's like, and so you have to think about, like, are you using a convection, using a fan in your oven? Are you making sure that you're placing it in the center of the oven? Are you preheating the oven when you put it in? And a lot of times I preheat the oven higher than the recommended temperature. So when you open the door of the oven, you lose like 5 to 10 degrees when you place this cold pan in there, because it's going to pull that temperature out. And so then, like, if the recipe's calling for 350, set it at like 360, 370. Put the pan in there, turn it down to 350, and the oven then should register at 350 versus trying to catch up to 350. Because if it tries to reheat to 350, sometimes that extra heat, when the oven's calling for heat, if it's electric or if it's gas, it could burn the cookies, or could throw in a lot of heat into the chamber of the oven and cause the cookies to kind of accelerate and cook too fast. So
and ovens are calibrated differently as well, right? So
Yeah.
you have to test your own oven.
Yeah.
How about like elevation? Because you've had to adjust temperatures and...
Elevations, yeah, I mean, I'm not real good on elevation, but it's everything over like 5,000 feet, where you have to change your sodas. But this isn't a real leavened piece. You're not baking bread, you're not boiling water, because water boils at like 180 degrees at 5,000 feet versus like 220, 21, or whatever it is. So things are different. There is a chart and a ratio based off of elevation. But this, I don't think you'll be too affected, because you're not, it's just enough leavening, and the soda's in there is really just to kind of give it that, enable it to kind of maintain that crunch. You're not trying to allow it to rise and like a loaf of bread, so you should be fine. It's not really going to change in size at all. The edges are going to round it out. Here's the sugar mixture, and you can come up with your own mixture for the top. This one was like 2 tablespoons of regular white sugar, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/8 teaspoon of clove, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to make this mixture. This looks like a lot more because I just had a lot of it. And you can put on as much or as little as you like. Or you can change the topping completely. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to use this. This is just a suggestion. I like a lot. It's just me. Some people like to wet it a little bit or brush it with butter before they put it on there so it adheres and it bakes. You can do that as well. So you can brush the tops of the graham crackers with melted butter and then put the sugar on top. And then you're going to place it in the oven. So I have the oven set at 360 degrees. I'm going to place it in there and then I'm going to turn it down to 350. And so that would give me my the exact temperature that I'm looking for. And then just set your timer. But what I look for when I'm baking them is that
So
you just
these
look
are
for the color.
These are baked.
Yeah, so these are baked. So look at that, TV magic. Here we go. I'm gonna take my gloves off now. So you can use the recommended temperature in the recipe that I gave you. You can, but I don't just rely on the temperature. It's like, okay, 350, put it in the oven at 350. It's like 12 minutes, gotta take it out 12 minutes. It's like, you have to just pay attention to what's happening. It might cook faster or it might cook slower. But you want this nice, deep, dark, crunchy kind of experience there. That's what you're looking for. I mean, look at this. This is like a graham cracker. You can see it's got a little texture and crumb, and that's from the coarse whole wheat flour. It's beautiful. I would space them out a little bit. If you bake them like this, they'll probably stick together and you're gonna have to score it with a knife. So when I bake it, I kind of try to bake them like this. Or just make sure you have space. Even that one I have space. I only have 6 on there. I mean, basically that's the way they went into the oven, the ones I just made. So you can do multiple sheet trays of them in the oven.
So are you going to construct a s'mores now?
So now I'm going to construct the s'mores.
So you're coming full circle from last week's demo on how to make marshmallows.
Yep.
And why have you chosen to melt the chocolate?
So, I don't know. So here's the thing. I don't know. Unless you have some crazy campfire or it's like really hot out and your chocolate's soft already. I mean, think about it. Like, when we send these s'mores kits out to people, here's our bars. It's pretty thick. So if you place this chocolate on top of a heated marshmallow, it's never really going to melt at 100%. But that being said, a lot of people do things like they grate their chocolate in a bowl and then they put the pre-grated chocolate on top and then the marshmallow will melt it.
Do you want to
do that?
Okay, you want to hear a Girl Scout method? Because I was a Girl Scout.
Oh, is this from you or from someone?
From me.
Okay.
So at the campfire, we would put the graham cracker and a little chunk of the Hershey's chocolate, right, in foil and put it in the smoldering fire. And then toast the marshmallow, pull out the foil, the chocolate will be melted, and then you could place your toasted marshmallow.
You're still melting the chocolate.
Yeah, but that's how we do it.
So why don't you just take chocolate and melt it over a double boiler, unless you're outside and you're at a campfire.
Yeah,
But
well,
you can even sit it somewhere if it's warm out. Like you can just.
we
sit
were
chocolate.
pre-teens. We didn't have a double broiler out at the campfire,
And
so
you can just sit chocolate outside. If you're outside and it's warm out, just let it melt. Like you don't
That's
even
a good point.
You don't even need to use a burner. You could just do whatever you like.
what if you live in San Francisco and it's cold in the summer and it's not
Or
so?
you can throw it in the microwave. There's so many ways you can melt chocolate. So here we go with. We've got this lovely plate. We've got our marshmallow. But I just want to show you if you had questions last week. So here, for example, I love this bag, Dandies. It's so cool. So Dandies are actually made with tapioca syrup, and they're not made with gelatin.
So we haven't tried that.
This is gluten-free, fat-free, vegan marshmallow. This is not this is not vegan. This has gelatin in it, and this so it's a different type of product. So there are marshmallows available that are gluten-free, fat-free, vegan, so on and so forth. You don't have to use marshmallows made of the animal product, because this also has egg whites in it, our marshmallows. But
So
our
Michael,
marshmallows are-
there's no gelatin, is that kosher?
Probably, yeah. Yep. It is kosher. It's everything. Oops. So the reason why I like these marshmallows is that because they are with egg whites, and they're a lot softer and more delicate.
Is that my cooking chopsticks?
No, these are the ones I had at work. They're
Okay.
not yours. And I'm gonna destroy them. So I wet the chopsticks first because they slide onto the marshmallow nicely. And you can use a burner or you can use a barbecue, anything. Make sure you
Campfire.
have some campfire, tin foil in the bag, whatever you want to do. I mean, and some people are very funny about toasting their marshmallows. Some people like them really toasted. Some people like them barely toasted.
That's right, there's technique to this.
Yeah. So I just I'm using a torch because that's what I have. And I just toast it. Oh yeah, look at that.
So this is the way that we toast for our hot chocolate as well, right?
Yeah.
Oops.
So then you slide it on. So if you wet it, it slides right off. If you don't wet it, it's going to stick to the skewer. You're never going to get it off.
Oh, you're going for the double
I'm
marshmallow.
going for double stacker. I like them super toasted like that. Look at that. It's beautiful. But look at this. Just
Okay,
slides
just
right
don't
off.
set the fire alarm.
And
So,
then you
and
take-
what chocolate did you melt? Did you melt our bar,
So
or
I
did you
melted
do?
our bittersweet bar? I like it because the marshmallows are sweet. I just trying to use something that's less sweet. I've also had people recommend using unsweetened chocolate, but it's a little too chalky for me and strong. But you can use it, and you can use any chocolate you want. We also have like our baking chocolate, Recchiuti baking chocolate, and we have a 64% and a 45%, and it comes in these little fevs, and you can use these.
And those
for
are
making-
easier too, because you don't have to break up the bar.
Exactly. And the bar's so pretty, why do you want to break it up? You just want to eat it.
You mean
And-
because it has your name written
Yeah,
all over
the
it?
place. And so I just see, look, you just pour melted chocolate on it. And there you go. And you make a big old mess, because these are really messy. And yeah, I don't know, some people like have certain ways they like to eat. So let me show you, like if you put the, this is what I say, if you put the graham cracker here, it's just really, I like it open face, but if you put it here, look at that. Oh, oh my God.
Well, that's the fun of it.
Mm-hmm. A big old mess. But there you go. S'mores.
Yep.
So last week we made the marshmallows. This week we made the graham crackers. Beautiful. And then we assembled a s'mores. This is a sandwich s'mores. Like I said, I prefer open face. And there you have it. Enjoy your weekend. Get cracking on those s'mores. So if you make your graham cracker dough and you already made your marshmallows, you can enjoy them tomorrow, Sunday.
For brunch.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. Have a good weekend.